The CEO lost his memory after a crash. Only a night nurse refused to let him disappear. The rain was falling so hard that night it seemed determined to erase the world. Twisted metal lay scattered across the highway. Emergency lights painted the darkness in flashes of red and blue. Inside the wreckage of a luxury SUV, a man sat barely conscious, blood running down his face as firefighters struggled to free him. His expensive watch was shattered. His phone was destroyed. His identity was gone before anyone even knew who he was. When he finally opened his eyes in a hospital bed 3 days later, he could not remember his name. He could not remember where he lived. He could not remember who he loved. He could not even remember who he was. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can save lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in humanity, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that touch the heart. The doctors called him John Doe. The police searched for identification but found nothing useful. The crash had burned most of his belongings. The man had severe injuries, a concussion, and significant memory loss. According to the specialists, his memories might return in weeks, months, or perhaps never. Most people would have expected someone important to come looking for him. Nobody did. Days turned into weeks. Visitors came and went throughout the hospital, but nobody walked through the doors asking for him. Nobody recognized him. Nobody claimed him. He became another forgotten patient occupying a bed near the back of the recovery ward. During the daytime, nurses did their jobs professionally and kindly. Doctors monitored his progress. Therapists helped him relearn routines. Yet when evening arrived and the hospital grew quieter, a strange loneliness settled around him. The only person who seemed unwilling to let him disappear was a night nurse named Emily Carter. Emily was 34 years old. She had worked night shifts for nearly a decade. Life had taught her how easily people could become invisible. Years earlier, her father had developed dementia. She remembered watching him slowly lose pieces of himself while the world grew impatient around him. She remembered how painful it felt when people stopped seeing the person behind the illness. That experience changed her forever. So when she looked at the unknown patient in room 214, she did not see a burden. She saw a human being fighting to hold on to whatever remained of his life. Every night Emily checked on him a little longer than necessary. She encouraged him during therapy. She brought crossword puzzles to stimulate his memory. She listened when he spoke about the strange emptiness inside his mind. The hardest part was not forgetting. The hardest part was knowing that something important existed beyond the fog but remaining unable to reach it. Sometimes he woke up sweating from dreams he could not understand. He would see glass buildings, crowded meeting rooms, a little girl laughing, a woman standing near the ocean. Then everything vanished before he could grasp it. Each lost fragment left him feeling more broken. Weeks later he was strong enough to walk through the hospital corridors. One evening Emily found him staring through a window overlooking the city. The lights glittered across the skyline. People hurried home. Cars moved through the streets. Entire lives unfolded outside. Yet he felt disconnected from all of it. For a long moment he wondered whether anyone even missed him. That thought hurt more than any physical injury. As winter approached, hospital administrators began discussing discharge plans. Medical bills were growing. Resources were limited. Without identification or family, long-term care became complicated. Some suggested transferring him to a state facility. Others recommended a shelter program. The conversations were practical. But to the man who had lost everything, they sounded like preparations for abandonment. Emily noticed the fear growing inside him. She noticed how his shoulders tightened whenever staff discussed his future. She noticed how he stopped asking questions because he was afraid of the answers. One night after finishing her rounds, Emily sat at the nurse's station reviewing old reports. Something bothered her. The crash had received local media attention for only a few days before disappearing from headlines. Yet she felt certain someone somewhere was searching for him. A man does not simply vanish from the world without leaving traces. Determined to help, she began spending spare moments researching missing persons reports. She searched social media. She reviewed public notices. She looked through archived news stories. Most searches led nowhere. Still, she refused to quit. Months passed. The patient's injuries healed. His memory did not. The hospital eventually discharged him into a temporary rehabilitation housing program. On his final night before leaving, Emily felt unexpectedly emotional. She had spent nearly 6 months watching him fight through confusion and despair. She knew he feared what awaited him outside. He had no family. No job. No history. No future he could identify. Just a blank space where a life should have been. As he left the next morning carrying a small bag of donated clothes, Emily worried she might never see him again. Yet fate had other plans. The rehabilitation center was only a few miles away. On her days off, Emily occasionally checked on him. She discovered that surviving outside the hospital was even harder. Potential employers wanted references. Landlords wanted records. People wanted explanations he could not provide. Every application forced him to admit the same painful truth. He did not know who he was. Rejection became routine. Some people pitied him. Others distrusted him. Many simply avoided him. Despite everything, he kept trying. He accepted odd jobs. He swept floors. Moved boxes. Cleaned storage rooms. Performed work most people overlooked. Each paycheck was small. Each day was difficult. But something remarkable happened. For the first time in his life, he began seeing the world from a completely different perspective. He met struggling single parents working 2 jobs. Elderly people choosing between food and medicine. Young workers carrying enormous burdens while earning very little. He discovered quiet forms of courage that rarely appeared in headlines. And without realizing it, he started changing. The man who once existed before the crash remained hidden behind the fog. But a new man was slowly emerging. Nearly a year after the accident, Emily received an unexpected phone call. A rehabilitation counselor sounded excited. A breakthrough had occurred. During a volunteer project, the patient had experienced a sudden memory flash after seeing a company logo on an office building. A name surfaced. Then another. Then fragments of addresses, meetings, and business deals. For the first time, real pieces of his past returned. Specialists immediately began investigating. What they discovered shocked everyone. The forgotten patient was not an ordinary man. His real name was Daniel Harrison. He was the founder and CEO of one of the largest technology companies in the country. The company was worth billions. News spread rapidly. Executives arrived. Lawyers appeared. Security teams surrounded him. Television reporters filled the streets. People who had never searched for him suddenly wanted access to him. The world had finally remembered Daniel Harrison. Yet the revelation brought unexpected pain. As more memories returned, Daniel learned the truth about his old life. Before the accident he had been consumed by work. Success had become an obsession. He spent endless hours building his empire. Relationships suffered. Friendships faded. His marriage ended years earlier. His daughter barely spoke to him. Many people admired his achievements. Very few truly knew him. The realization struck harder than the crash itself. He had built an empire yet somehow lost the people who mattered most. One evening Daniel sat alone in a luxury apartment provided by his company. The city skyline stretched before him. Years earlier he would have considered this view a symbol of victory. Now it felt strangely empty. He thought about the hospital. He thought about the rehabilitation center. He thought about the people struggling every day simply to survive. Most of all, he thought about Emily. The nurse who cared when nobody else did. The nurse who refused to let him disappear. Without her, he might have spent the rest of his life forgotten. Daniel knew he could never repay that debt. But he could honor it. The following months brought dramatic changes. Instead of returning to business exactly as before, Daniel began reshaping the company. Employee assistance programs expanded. Mental health resources increased. Scholarships were created for healthcare workers. Emergency funds were established for struggling families. Many executives questioned the expenses. Daniel ignored them. He had learned something money could not teach. People matter more than profit. Meanwhile, Daniel worked to rebuild his relationship with his daughter. The process was slow. Painful. Awkward. Years of emotional distance could not disappear overnight. Yet for the first time, he was genuinely present. He listened. He apologized. He stopped trying to solve problems with money. Instead, he offered something far more valuable. His time. His attention. His heart. Gradually, walls began to fall. One afternoon his daughter invited him to lunch. Months later she introduced him to his grandson. The small boy climbed into Daniel's lap and smiled. That simple moment brought tears Daniel could not hold back. For years he had chased success while missing experiences that truly mattered. Now he understood. A meaningful life is measured by connections, not possessions. The anniversary of the accident eventually arrived. Daniel organized a private event. Employees, healthcare workers, friends, and family gathered in a large auditorium. Emily attended without knowing why she had been invited. When Daniel stepped onto the stage, the room became silent. He spoke about memory, identity, loss, and second chances. He described waking up without a name, without purpose, without certainty that anyone cared whether he lived or died. Then he described the night nurse who refused to give up on him. The nurse who treated him like a person when he felt invisible. The nurse who searched for answers long after others stopped looking. Many people in the audience wiped away tears. Emily sat quietly in her chair, overwhelmed. Daniel then announced the creation of a national foundation supporting patients with memory loss, traumatic brain injuries, and long-term rehabilitation needs. The foundation would bear a simple name: the Emily Carter Foundation. The audience rose to its feet. Applause echoed throughout the room. Emily covered her face as tears streamed down her cheeks. She never expected recognition. She never sought rewards. She had simply chosen compassion when compassion was needed. And now thousands of future patients would receive help because of one decision she made during lonely hospital nights. Years later, the foundation transformed countless lives. Families found support. Patients found hope. Caregivers found resources. Stories of recovery spread across the country. Yet Daniel often said the foundation's greatest achievement was teaching people a lesson. Nobody should ever become invisible. Not because they are poor. Not because they are sick. Not because they are forgotten. Every person matters. Every life carries value. And sometimes one act of kindness can change generations. Before this story ends, please leave a comment and tell us, what country are you watching from, and what lesson touched your heart the most in Daniel and Emily's journey? As Daniel grew older, fragments of his lost memories continued returning. Some arrived unexpectedly. Others never returned at all. Surprisingly, he stopped chasing every missing piece. He realized he no longer needed every answer. The accident had taken part of his memory. But it had given him something even greater. Perspective. Purpose. And a second chance to become the man he should have been all along. The man who once feared being forgotten eventually became known not for his wealth, but for his compassion. And the nurse who quietly refused to let him disappear became the reason thousands of others would never be forgotten either. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to support the channel and help more people discover stories that inspire kindness, hope, and second chances. And don't forget to tell us in the comments which country you're watching from. Your message may inspire someone else around the world today. Because sometimes the people who save lives are not the ones who perform miracles, they are the ones who simply refuse to walk away when everyone else does. Red Heart.